Bet anywhere with TVG.
Here on the Tuesday shows, we've began a new segment where we're showing you a personality that's a bit new to the sport of horse racing. And today we're going to welcome in Matt Dinerman, who actually had a lot of different hats that he was wearing early on in the racetrack, whether it be working on the backside, working the Del Mar press box, and now he's the race caller at Emerald Downs. So, Matt, thanks for coming on. And how's life treating you calling races there high atop Emerald Downs?
Things are really going great here. Emerald Downs is a great place to be. I feel very, very lucky to be here, and I'm just having a lot of fun. Every day I'm waking up excited to go to work, and you can't ask for much more than that. If you love what you do, I'd say you live a pretty good life. And
I'm excited for you because when you look at racetrack announcers, I mean, it really is promising to see a guy like yourself that has been a go-getter. You've done some different things within the racetrack. But before we get to how you got to that position, let's start with, let's say, working with John Sadler there on the backside here in California.
Well, when I was 16, I wanted to be in the racing business. I just loved the races. My dad took me when I was very young, and a good friend of mine named Gail Van Leer, who's a bloodstock agent, she took me to the backstretch when I was really young, probably 11 or 12, and I wanted to be in the business. And Gail gave me good advice and said, well, I think the best thing to do is start, on the backstretch and learn about the horses. So when I was 16, I got a job working for John Sadler, and I was going to do it just a couple summers, and then I loved it so much I ended up just going back, and I ended up working there for 4 summers, and I hot walked, and every year they gave me a little more to do, and I learned more and more about the horses, and I walked a lot of really nice horses, and I worked with some Grade 1 winners, and it was just a blast, and right away I just fell in love with the horses, and I think that's part of the reason I have the drive to continue on is because I just love the athletes so much.
From even the big fan of horse racing or the hardened handicapper that looks at these races all the time but never has experience on the backside, what would you tell those people that you learned from working with the animals in the stall and in the morning that maybe you're not going to find out just by looking at the racing form?
Well, one thing is their personalities and the way they're trained. I think horses are like humans. They all have different personalities. It's not a formula when it comes to training the horses in a sense because all the horses are different, and they all have their things going on, whether those things are good things or little minor problems the trainers have to work on to get them 100% ready to go. And I think one thing that maybe some of the people that aren't handicapping won't know is certain tendencies on the track. Maybe they're not as focused. Maybe they have a little issue going on and they're trying to fix it out. And just working on the backstretch, you get to learn the horses, and those things aren't on a program. You can't look and see whether a horse, hangs in the morning and they're trying to get him to focus and things like that. And I've just learned that there's so much hard work that goes into getting these horses ready, and it's day in and day out. It's a grind. Some people back there, they love what they do, of course, but it's a constant grind to get those horses ready at 100%, and they have to work very, very hard to get those horses into that winner's circle.
And we also see that you worked in the Del Mar press box for a couple summers there in 2012 and 2014. At what point did you say, you know what, I want to get into the business, maybe I should become a racetrack announcer?
Well, I always sort of had this itch to do it a couple years. The first year I worked in the press box, which was 4 summers ago, I worked in the press box there, and I really had an itch to do it, but I didn't really know if I wanted to. There were only so many positions, and I didn't know how hard it was going to be. And then last summer, I just decided to go for it. And for my birthday, one of the gifts I got was a pair of binoculars, and I'd go in the booth, and just as I practiced more and more, I just fell in love with it. And I think part of the reason that I like doing it so much is because I enjoy watching the races. I love going to the track. I've always wanted to work at the track, and I also enjoy handicapping the races and looking to see how the race plays out and trying to describe it to people.
And you've got a lot of experience with the horses, working with them personally in the mornings, and you've got a great handicapping mind as well. Was there one racetrack announcer that really showed you the way or gave you some advice, or for you, was it really just trial and error and just recording these on your own?
I think it's a combination of both, to be honest with you, Caleb. One thing you have to do there's no school of announcing. The only way you're going to get better at it is by repetition and practicing more and more. So I went into a booth in there and practiced over and over and just kept practicing more races and more races, recording myself and listening back, and also listening to other announcers. There have been a lot of announcers that have given me some really good advice, and I wish I had the time to name them all, but I'd say the three biggest influences are, one, Trevor Denman. I just really love the way Trevor describes the race and is able to tell you what's going on, and at times can even tell you before something happens that it's going to happen. And when I worked with Robert Geller up here at Emerald Downs, he gave me a lot of great advice and support. And Larry Colmus was another one who gave me plenty of advice and encouragement. And those three guys, I listen to them. I listen to as many announcers as I can and listen to what they try to do to describe the race, and I think that helps my announcing style moving forward.
Matt Dinerman joining the show here. He's been the racetrack announcer at Emerald Downs since early June of this year, so basically in the infancy of his broadcasting career in terms of calling the races, as we're getting a look here. And one of the things I love, I've been to Emerald Downs one time, Matt. We did a show called The Late Double, which is no more, but boy, I guess it was fun while it lasted. But when I went up there, they had really unbridled enthusiasm for the racing there in Washington.
Yeah, the people up here are great. They like you said, they really love their racing. It's a really big community. It's a family community, to be honest with you. When you come here, there's just that energy. When you go to a big race like the Breeders' Cup, for example, or maybe the Kentucky Derby, you feel that energy, and it's a different type of energy here, of course, but it's excited energy. People are very enthusiastic about their racing here at Emerald Downs, and as soon as I came here, I could just feel a sense of community and family. And people really love their racing. We get good crowds here. The crowd cheers loud. They want to learn about the horses, and the management here is just amazing. I mean, Sophia and Phil and everybody worked really hard here to make the racing as good as possible, and the support that they give towards everybody is amazing, including myself. And I just want to thank everyone up here for being so nice and supportive of my career, and also all my friends and family. And also, you know, you guys have been very supportive at TVG and have said some very nice things. And I want to thank everybody at TVG and all over social media and everywhere for just all the support.
And Matt, we're going to keep you on the line here. We're going to let this third from Presque Isle go, but we saw two in the footage there from Emerald Downs. It's a beautiful backdrop. You got Mount Rainier there in the distance over the first turn.
Yeah, it's really an amazing sight. And when Mount Rainier is out, when it's blue skies, you look out there and it just, I mean, it's just a picture perfect view. And I think that's one of the things you can't help but go out there in between races when the races aren't going on, because it's just a beautiful area, a lot of green. Our summer this summer was very nice, and the weather has just been outstanding. And usually the best weather is around when Emerald runs here in Washington.
All right, Matt, we're going to keep you on the line here, but they're going into the gate for the third from Presque Isle Downs. Much more to come with the new Emerald Downs track announcer here in just a bit. But let's put him into line here for this 6.5 furlong claiming race for the 10th from Indiana Grand, as we'll bring back in Matt Dinerman. And Matt, you mentioned the fact that you started out in the press box there at Del Mar just calling races to have that to critique. And a lot of people don't realize that about this business. It does take a while. I mean, you got to get out there and, like you mentioned, get reps. I guess that's true for really any craft. But what was some of your impressions early that you knew you had to work on when you listened to those early tapes?
In terms of what I needed to work on personally?
Just, I mean, when you would hear your race, if you're trying to critique yourself, which I actually DVR my shows and have to go back, and sometimes you'll see something, or if I said something I didn't like, you kind of shake your head, but you got to watch it to be able to listen and adapt. So what were some of the things that you knew that you could get better on from the beginning?
I would say the first thing is pace of the race, because when you're starting out, and I learned that a lot of announcers are like this, and it's hard to get better at it. You have to really work at this part. Is sometimes we go a little too fast, and for me, I was listening and I was talking a little too fast, because when I was calling the race in the beginning, my mind was just going a million miles an hour. So I think being able to say all the horses clearly, not go too fast, and also to be accurate. And I think that's just with repetition, you learn to say the lengths accurately. You learn to talk about what's going on and not just worry about style. You know, you want to be accurate and say when a horse is losing ground and being asked to pick it up, you don't want to say that unless they actually are having difficulty. So just worrying about accuracy and pace, I think those were the two things that I really, really stressed. Just getting the basics going, that type of thing.
And that resonated with me as well. I can remember when I first started for TVG, Donna Barton Brothers, who I was working with at Keeneland, she finally stopped me and said, "Caleb, you have got to slow down." So it's something about the analytical mind of the handicapper that it gets moving really fast.
Sure. Yeah, and that's just, it's natural. It's when your mind's going so fast in the beginning stages of announcing. But as you do it more and more, I'm sure you know that you just learn to settle down and be accurate with it.
And you had a chance to call the premier race, the Longacres Mile, for the first time this summer as well.
Yeah, I called my first Longacres Mile, and it was just a terrific experience. That was probably the biggest thrill in horse racing I've had. I've never had that type of adrenaline rush before, and the energy here, like we talked about earlier, is so big. But when it comes to the Longacres Mile, that's like the Washington, Kentucky Derby or Breeders' Cup. I mean, a ton of people are at the track. It's packed. They really build up for the mile, and we had a hometown favorite here named Striker PhD, who actually won on Sunday. But there were a lot of fans out there cheering for him, and it was just a lot of fun. Of course, you're going to get a little nervous for these big races, but once the gates open, you settle down, and when they're coming down the stretch, it's just so much fun. And I want to do it again. I mean, I wish they could run a big race like that next week, because I just had so much fun doing it, and I know a lot of people had fun watching.
And that was a tremendous call, too, at the local here, like you were mentioning, in Striker PhD. Now, I wanted to ask you as well, when you think about the nerves we always talk about leading up to a big race, I mean, sometimes my body is on fire leading up to a Kentucky Derby, knowing what's on the line. So, in a way, sometimes you can feel nervous, but like you mentioned, once the gates open, I feel like when you're confident at what you're doing, on the bigger the stage is, actually, the more tranquil you can feel.
Yeah, and I think having those nerves is actually a very healthy thing, because it really gets your adrenaline going. It makes you excited for the race. But if you're prepared and you're confident in yourself, especially when they load into the gates, once they're loaded in there, you learn to relax as an announcer, and you learn to have confidence in yourself that you prepared for the race, you know the horses, and you've called 12-horse fields before, just go ahead and doing it again. But I think with confidence and preparation, you learn to calm down that way.
You know, Matt, I've got a very talented broadcaster from my hometown, a few years younger than me, who actually gave me a call earlier this summer, and he's getting set to graduate college, and he said, what do you think about maybe going into broadcasting the races as a race caller, which I was very interested when he threw out that idea. What advice would you give to him?
I would say advice would be to listen to other callers and learn about what they do, because you don't want to mimic other callers. You don't want to be carbon copies, but at the same time, you want to learn from some of the best, and that's by analyzing. And I think that's how we all learn. You know, I'm sure you learn, and I'm sure how everyone else learns in their field from other people above them who have done well. So I would say listen to other race callers, and also once you get going, once you start practicing, just keep practicing and understand that it's not an easy thing to do, and it's going to take some time. I mean, when I was first starting, I forgot names, and I was going too fast, and I didn't like the way I sounded, but Trevor Denman was the one person who kept telling me it's a very long process. It takes years and years of experience to get really, really good at it. So make sure to be patient, because it's going to take some time to get good at it, but you can if you just keep practicing.
And Matt, very well said. Thanks for joining us today, and we know you're in just the beginning of a great career.
Thanks for having me, Caleb. And again, thank you for everyone for their support. It truly means a lot to me, and I very, very much appreciate it.
That's Matt Dinerman, the racetrack announcer from Emerald Downs.